Welcome on the low here at Cast TV with your host Nawagana Shiba. Today we are going to be looking at certain interesting point about the breach of contract or breach of promise to marry. I'm not alone. I'm with the legal advisor himself, Mr. Mjuni. He's going to be taking us through this episode to the end of it, explaining what is the breach of promise to marry, how does it apply, and in case I want to seek help, where should I start from? Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. We've been looking at recently most of the ladies, or even gents, but mostly ladies, face a challenge of being into a relationship, and certainly at the end of the day it ends. You find someone is in a relationship for almost 4 years to 6 years, and at the end of the day the man marries someone else. Already has promised to marry me, but he's opting for another lady. What are the steps or procedures that the law is putting there for this young lady?
Okay, thank you so much. So in most cases, very many young women and men outside there don't know that they have a remedy, a legal remedy or legal remedies when it comes to breach of promise to marry. So precisely there are very many steps that the law has for them to be helped. And those steps, when we continue with our discussion, we are going to look at some of those steps that a particular person who is aggrieved can take to make sure that the promise to marry has been honored by the person who made it.
Promise to marry, is it same as cohabitation, or there are two different things?
No, there are two different things. Cohabitation is when you are already living with someone, but you are not married with that person. And then a promise to marry is when you just promise someone, you are with someone maybe in courtship, but you promise that person that you are going to marry him or her, and you make very many things to show that you are really serious, you want to marry this person. So the two are completely different. Yes, the two are completely.
So what are those elements that we base on to say that I was promised to marry, this person promised to marry me?
Okay, there are very many things that you can base on to show that the person was seriously intending to marry you. For example, someone maybe you might be in courtship with your partner, and then in that courtship you agree mutually to do very many things. You have future plans together with your partner. For example, you might tell him that or he might tell you that he intends to marry you and visit your home, and then also you make a budget, he makes a budget too, to make sure that there is that first visit that he makes to your place, and he also makes a budget of the introduction ceremony and all that, and then he ends up not showing up or not marrying you for some for some reasons that maybe we might look at after. Yeah.
Then you said making preparations. Now what if he came for the first visit, what we call in Luganda kuchala? Does it also apply that he came for the kuchala but he has not attended the kwanjula or even the wedding?
Yes, it may apply whereby, because when we talk of breach of contract, breach of promise to marry, is when someone is intending to legally marry you. So kuchala alone cannot really be assumed to be marriage unless there is an introduction. An introduction is a form of marriage. Of course, it's customary. But if there is no introduction and this person goes ahead and marries someone else, then of course that person has breached the promise to marry.
Yes. Does this kind of law, is it a law? Does it apply to even minors? For example, maybe I was 10 years and someone promised to marry me, and later on I find out that we went separate ways, he married someone else, and now all alone, being single, faithful to this one guy, but long ago he left this promise. Does it apply to minors?
Well, it doesn't apply to minors because our law, our constitution, clearly explains what marriage is. Marriage is supposed to be between two people who are above, a man and a woman who are above, who are 18 or above, okay? And they are supposed to have consented to that marriage, and they are supposed to have equal rights at the beginning, during, and even at the dissolution of that particular marriage. So when it comes to the age element, they do not qualify to make any promises to marry. So if someone promised you when you're in P2 that he or she is going to marry you, and now you have reached campus and this person has married another person, probably this person has nothing against you, or you have nothing against this person, because there are very many other things that you did not do in that relationship, and you were even bound by, you were even deterred by the age element. You are not of the majority age.
So what would be the causes of this for someone to break their promises at the end of the day?
Of course, there are several causes for breach of promise to marry that are not scripted anywhere or even written down anywhere. Just like someone might just change when you, for example, when you are in senior 6 and you do maybe BCM, or for example, let's say you do Hague, and when you reach campus you might be wanting to do a certain course, but then you end up doing another course for your own reasons. Even those reasons may deter, but some of the reasons some people give, some people consider age. Someone might say, I wanted to marry him, or I wanted to marry her. By that time she was 22, but now she's 30 and she doesn't look as beautiful as she looked when she was 22. And yet there are several girls who really look beautiful at a very young age. So that's why I'm no longer interested in her. Some women also give different reasons, that maybe I have found someone richer than him. Maybe I have found someone who is more caring than him. Some men also have, of course, men have several reasons, but some of them just consider age and maybe characters. You might you might change in character, and someone says, I wanted to marry her because she showed me that she had good characters, but right now she really changed and I can no longer afford to marry her.
Well, then do you think that it's kinda not good, because you've already proposed to someone? By the time you propose, you already know someone's weaknesses, and you know the negative parts and the positive parts, and you know how to be able to build yourselves or handle yourselves in a way that you understand each other. Don't you think it's kind of weird?
Of course, I don't want to think for people who break or who breach their promises to marry, because you never know what really happens in people's relationships, because that one is only for them to determine. But personally, if I have promised to marry someone, I really have to make sure, or I would really love to make sure that I fulfill that promise. But to other people, of course, I cannot really think for them.
What would be the effects or the consequences of this kind of situation?
Yes, there are several effects for breach to marry. One of the effects, of course, you lose trust. You have broken someone's heart, of course. Then you lose trust. People now fear to trust you, even if there is a potential man or woman that you intend to marry. That person is also going to lose trust. He or she will say, by the time you breached, by the time you refused to marry the other one whom you had spent just like 6 years, what about me, the person you have seen for 3 months? So you will find that you are going to walk around but people in your circles are going to fear you for breaking promises. Then another effect is you can be sued. You can be sued for breach of promise to marry here in Uganda. Anyway, because you see here we talk when our show is viewed by very many people, and some of them are, of course, from different countries. They may think that they can be sued in their countries for breaching the promises to marry in their countries, but I'm particularly talking about Uganda. Here in Uganda, you can be sued for breach of contract to marry, breach of promise to marry, and you, of course, they can sue you for, it doesn't have any time limit. Suing someone is just wake up and say, yes. Yes, how and what you have promised each other, what you have done so far. You might have done, you might have even drafted budgets for the kuchala, the kwanjula, or even weddings, and then and even you might have even already bought some properties together. Just preparing for that one day when you are going to legalize your relationship, and then all these things end up being sabotaged by one party.
So in case someone out there is a victim of this situation, or was promised and later on was ditched, how do they get hope?
Of course, the first hope they can get is to, it's not all about suing someone or someone for doing a wrong thing or breaching a contract, but you can first of all negotiate. They can first go into negotiations with this party, and then maybe if a man has spent a lot of money on you, and for example, maybe the man has spent like 50 million, and now you have disappointed him, you want to go and marry another person. The first step I can advise them to take is to first go into negotiations with this party and see whether he or she can recover the 50 million or half of that money. Because they were in a relationship, they can even decide to just give themselves quota of that money. So if that one fails, of course they can now do, the aggrieved party can sue. You can sue a person who has breached the promise to marry, and yes, and when you sue, when you have good grounds, you have the evidence, you can show the expenses, what you have, what damage or what injury this person has caused to you. Of course, court can base on that and maybe determine in your favor. Yes.
All right, you're still here on MX Media and Ocas TV with your host Nalwagana Shiba, and today's topic is about breach of promise to marry. Mr. Mjuni, does this law, in case there is a couple there with a child or they are having 2 children, does it still apply?
Yes, of course it applies. It applies if these people were in cohabitation and they already have children, and this man has this one of them promised to marry the other one, and there is proof that yes, this person promised to marry me, and this is the proof. We even have a child out of cohabitation. Of course, they can also collect evidence, and they base on that, as long as these people have not yet reached a step of a real marriage.
So where does this leave the children?
The children, of course, there are now remedies to the children. We have remedies like custody. We have remedies like maintenance. We have guardianship. They can apply for any of those. For example, if the mother wants to remain with the child or the children, the mother can apply for custody of the child, all of the children. And if, of course, the requirements enable the man to apply for custody, the man can as well apply for custody. Now, applying for custody, that one now depends on the circumstances. Custody is a whole big topic to be discussed about, but of course those remedies are there. The children can go with the mother or with the father, and they can as well share. They can apply for visitation, so that if, for example, the child has gone with the mother, the father can go and can be given days by court to days of visiting the children. Yes, okay, of course maintaining them and all that.
Alright, that has been all for today's show here on The Law. Any last remarks?
The last remarks. Yes. The last remarks maybe goes because here we deal with the adult students from different countries, and maybe what I can tell them is they shouldn't keep on promising our Ugandan girls marriage anyhow, because they might end up being sued for nothing, and yet they don't know. Maybe they might come with their laws in their countries, and it is okay for them to just toss around girls or toss around men, and maybe joke with them and date with them for some time and leave them, promise that they will marry them, give them all the hopes. But when you do it here in Uganda, you might end up paying a price for it. You might end up being sued for it, and you might go you might be taken to court in a foreign country. Yes.
Alright, that has been all for today's show. Men have a tendency of breaching promises. You promise someone or you propose to someone, and then at the end of the day you marry someone else. Be careful. This law will come and get you. Like risk at your own risk. What do they say?
Even women eat transport.
Women don't do that. Women don't
transport.
But women don't. But they don't even apply.
Yeah, of course, yes. Yes, if I send you transport every time and you keep on promising me that you are going to marry me, and we do all the budgets and yes. Actually, the first case in Uganda on someone who paid back the money was against a woman. A woman was ordered to pay back 9 million. Yeah, for breaching the promise to marry. Yes, so so it's either way.
Alright, today promise at your own risk, because at the end of the day you might suffer the consequences. You've been watching The Law. Till next time, with your host Naraga Nashiba and Mr. Mujuni. Till next time here at Ocas TV. Bye bye.